Every morning before sunrise, Maya Reed stood at the same cracked bus stop on Jefferson Avenue, clutching a paper bag and fighting exhaustion. She was 23, working the breakfast shift at a clinic cafeteria and stocking shelves at a discount store until nearly midnight. Sleep was a luxury. Rent was always late. Hope came in small pieces. That was why she noticed him. The old man who slept beside the boarded-up laundromat, wrapped in a thin blanket that barely protected him from the cold. Most people walked faster when they saw him. Some crossed the street. Maya did too at first. She told herself she didn't have extra time, extra food, extra anything. Life already felt like a balancing act on a breaking wire. But one morning in early spring, she'd packed an extra peanut butter sandwich without thinking. As she stood at the bus stop watching the old man sit up and rub his hands together for warmth, something inside her tightened. The sandwich would sit in her locker all day. He hadn't eaten yet. Her feet carried her toward him before her mind could talk her out of it. "Sir," she said softly, holding out the bag. "I made too much breakfast." He studied her face like he was searching for a trick. His eyes were sharp, alert. "You need it more than I do," he replied quietly. "Maybe," she said, forcing a smile, "but I'm still offering." He took it carefully as if it might disappear. "Thank you, miss." "Maya?" "Henry," he said. That was how it started. The next morning she brought coffee in an old thermos and a banana. The day after that, another sandwich. Within a week it became a ritual. 6:10 a.m. every morning, rain or shine. They talked while the city slowly woke up around them. He always sat straight, proud despite the cardboard beneath him. He asked about her jobs, her dream of becoming a nurse someday. She asked about his life, and that was when the strange stories came out. He talked about flying helicopters through deserts under gunfire, escorting government officials to secret locations, being part of missions that never made the news. He mentioned generals and senators like old coworkers. Maya listened politely, nodding, assuming age and loneliness had turned memories into fantasies. Still, she never corrected him. His stories made his eyes light up, and that seemed important. While Henry spoke about the past, Maya's present was unraveling. Her apartment was barely bigger than a closet, bills stacked up on the counter like quiet threats. Her fridge was usually empty except for bread and a jar of peanut butter. Some nights she went to sleep hungry so she could save food for the next morning's sandwich. The power company sent warnings. The landlord knocked too often. But every morning she still showed up at the bus stop. Feeding Henry didn't feel like charity. It felt like responsibility, like seeing someone the world had chosen to ignore. One morning, after she handed him his usual breakfast, he broke the sandwich in half and offered part back. "You look thinner," he said gently. "Fair is fair." Maya tried to refuse, but he insisted. She turned away so he wouldn't see tears filling her eyes. He knew. He'd always known. Then one Monday, he was gone. No blanket, no cardboard, no trash bag of belongings. The space beside the laundromat looked empty, like he'd never existed. Maya waited through 2 buses, panic rising in her chest. The next day, he was still gone, and the next. She checked shelters after work, called hospitals she could barely afford to travel to, but no one had heard of him. Each morning, the bus stop felt colder, quieter, wrong. After nearly a week, she was stepping off the bus when she saw him again, sitting exactly where he always had been. Thinner, pale, like life had drained some color from him. She ran to him. "Henry, where were you?" He gave a tired smile. "Had some trouble. I'm still here." And that was when she noticed the long healing cut across his hand. Too neat to be an accident. "What happened?" she asked. He pulled his sleeve down quickly. "Old things catching up to me," he said softly. Before she could ask more, he reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed envelope. It was heavy, worn at the edges. "If something happens to me," he said firmly, "I need you to mail this." Her stomach tightened. "You're not going anywhere. Promise me." His eyes were serious in a way she'd never seen. Slowly, she nodded. "I promise." He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. The bus pulled up behind her, doors hissing open. She slipped the envelope into her bag and looked back at him one more time. He was already closing his eyes, resting against the brick wall like the weight of the world had finally settled. Maya didn't know it yet, but that envelope held the truth behind every unbelievable story, and the beginning of a chain of events far bigger than either of them could imagine. Henry collapsed on a Thursday morning just as the sky was turning pale pink. Maya had just handed him his thermos when his fingers began shaking violently. Not from cold, not from age, something deeper, scarier. The thermos slipped, coffee splashing across the sidewalk. His mouth opened like he wanted to speak, but no words came out. Then his knees buckled. Maya caught him before his head hit the concrete and lowered him gently, her heart hammering in her chest. "Help! Someone call an ambulance," she shouted. A woman across the street pulled out her phone. A few people stared. One man walked away. Maya kept talking to Henry, begging him to stay awake, holding his trembling hand until the sirens finally cut through the morning air. At the hospital, everything blurred into rushing feet, bright lights, and clipped voices. A nurse tried to stop Maya from following the gurney. "Are you family?" "I'm all he has," Maya said without thinking. They let her stay in the waiting area where time stretched painfully slow. When a doctor finally came out, his face was serious but calm. "He had severe dehydration and signs of a stroke," he explained. "We stabilized him, but there's a problem. He has no ID, no insurance." The hospital planned to transfer him to a crowded county facility. Maya felt fear rise in her throat. "He's a veteran," she blurted out. The staff hesitated. Without proof, they couldn't check records. A senior doctor overheard and ordered them to try anyway. Minutes later, everything changed. His file appeared, mostly blacked out, classified service history, honorable discharge years ago. The doctors exchanged looks. Henry wasn't a forgotten drifter. He was a forgotten soldier. He was moved to a veterans care center that afternoon. It was cleaner, quieter, and filled with people who actually called him by his name. Over the following weeks, color slowly returned to his face. He ate full meals. He slept in a real bed. He laughed more. One day, Maya found him writing in a small notebook. "I'm putting the truth down," he said, "in case memory fades." Pages were filled with dates, names, places she didn't recognize. "This is for you," he added, pressing it into her hands, "so you'll know I wasn't lying." Her eyes burned. "I never thought you were. That was only half true." She brought him a thick blue blanket she'd saved for, and he held it like it was gold. "No one's taken care of me like this in years," he whispered. Then one quiet morning, weeks later, the facility called her. Henry had passed in his sleep. Heart failure. Peaceful. Maya felt the world tilt. At the center, they handed her his few belongings, the blanket, the notebook, and an envelope addressed to her. Inside was a photograph of Henry, decades younger, standing in full military uniform, medals across his chest, flanked by powerful-looking men. The stories weren't stories after all. Sitting alone that night, Maya finally opened the sealed letter he had given her weeks earlier. It was written to a high-ranking general, explaining how the government had forgotten him and how a struggling young woman had treated him with more dignity than the entire system ever had. He asked that she be remembered. Maya realized Henry hadn't just trusted her with a letter. He had trusted her with the truth and with his legacy. 2 weeks after Henry's funeral, the knock came just after dawn. Maya was tying her shoes for work when she heard firm, measured raps against her apartment door. When she opened it, 3 uniformed military officers stood in the narrow hallway, their posture rigid, faces serious. The tallest stepped forward. "Miss Maya Reed?" Her heart began to race. "Yes. We're here regarding Henry Walker." The air felt heavier. "A general received his letter," the officer continued. "She would like to meet you in Washington." Maya had never left her state, never been on a plane, never imagined her quiet mornings at a bus stop could reach the Pentagon. Yet 2 days later, she was staring out a plane window at clouds while an escort explained that Henry had once been a high-level intelligence operative whose records were lost in classified bureaucracy. His disappearance had triggered a massive internal investigation. At the Pentagon, Maya met General Eleanor Cross, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes and a steady voice. "Henry saved lives," the general said, placing his file on the desk. "And we failed him." She explained how dozens of veterans with classified service had vanished from support systems over the years. Henry's letter, and Maya's name within it, forced the truth into the light. The general asked Maya to testify before Congress about what it looked like when a hero was abandoned and a stranger stepped in. Fear nearly made her say no, but she remembered the envelope, the promise, the mornings at the bus stop. She said yes. The hearing room was packed with senators, cameras, reporters. When Maya spoke, she didn't talk about policy. She talked about hunger, dignity, kindness, and how a man who once served the nation ended up sleeping on cardboard while the system lost his name. Some officials shifted uncomfortably, others leaned forward, listening closely. Her words spread across the country within hours. The pressure was immediate. Funding was approved for outreach programs. A task force was formed to track veterans with sealed service records. A memorial fund was launched in Henry's name to help those who had fallen through the cracks. The general offered Maya a role helping manage it while finishing her medical training. Months passed. Maya worked part-time at a veterans hospital and part-time running the fund. Hundreds of former service members received housing assistance, medical care, and legal support. Henry was finally buried with full military honors, a flag folded neatly and placed on his grave. Maya placed a peanut butter sandwich beside the headstone, smiling through tears. "We kept our promise," she whispered. Life slowly improved. Her bills were paid on time. She moved into a small but clean apartment, but every morning she still rode the same bus route. One day she saw a young woman sitting alone near the stop, cold and hungry. Maya sat beside her and offered a sandwich. "Why are you helping me?" the girl asked quietly. Maya thought of Henry's steady voice, his proud posture, his hidden past. "Because someone once taught me that small kindness can change everything." The bus pulled up, and as Maya boarded, she looked back at the empty spot by the old laundromat. For a moment she imagined Henry there, smiling. He was gone, but what he started lived on. In systems reformed, lives saved, and in every simple act of compassion that refused to look away.